Well, for more insight into cultural exchanges between China and the United States, I spoke with Claire Chen. She's an assistant professor of Chinese as well as a committee member in Asian Studies at St. Mary's College of Maryland. And I asked her for her view on the status of bilateral cultural ties.
So I think because we are in the era of globalization, so actually there's more influence of Western cultures, and then China and Asian overall, they embrace Hollywood movies and music. Like Taylor Swift's A Big Hot, Backstreet Boy has been on the blacklist because it's too popular. So a lot of the Western influence that Chinese teenagers, they really enjoy for the past 40 years, and it has become more and more greater influences.
And there has been that window into US culture, usually through Hollywood and through movies and things. But we're also seeing on the flip side a lot more influence from China, not just in terms of funding, but collaboration when it comes to some of these big blockbuster Hollywood movies. How is that relationship developing between China and Hollywood?
Okay, so I think a lot of the reason behind that is that it's about the money, the foundings. So the Chinese government really spends a lot of the effort promoting this kind of cultural exchanges, and then they sponsor a lot of the movie productions. So like for instance, this summer we have the film The Mag. It's one of the example of the co-productions, and it's really a big hit in China. And also, I think they're trying to test the water of co-producing a film animations called The White Snake that is coming. So we will see what's going on later, yeah.
And what about Hollywood trying to enter the Chinese market? We know that there had been a cap on the number of movies that can enter the Chinese market. How much does Hollywood want to get in there?
Because I think by the year of 2020, China will become like the world's second largest film market. So it's a big market. So Hollywood movie has always been striving to enter the Chinese market. And then we see, they actually earn a lot of the money. And so through cooperations, Chinese government said, if we have more opportunity to cooperate with Hollywood movies, then you can get maybe more avenues or profits out of the films, yeah.
And we're also even seeing more representation in terms of Chinese talent in the US as well.
Right.
Tell us more about how that came to be.
Yeah, so I think if you are targeting a specific country, the target audience would always be happy to see one or two familiar faces. And I think through global cooperations, not just the directors, the actors, the technicians, the more the actors showing up, the more the better, for the target audience to embrace the films, yeah.
And what about music? How is the music crossover coming between the two countries?
Yeah, so I think movie is one of the challenges for China now because, as we mentioned, we have a lot of Western influences nowadays. So even the Chinese teenagers now, they are listening to the so-called technical, dance music. They kind of like lose the knowledge about Chinese classical music. So I think the challenges for China right now is how they can incorporate classical Chinese elements into the new music genres, that's usually embraced by the West.
And another important cultural tie, of course, education. Tell us about Chinese students' role in terms of like reform and opening up and this growing cultural ties relationship.
Enrolling in the States, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, so so nowadays, I think because of the trade war, so the U.S., a lot of universities, they limit the enrollment for Chinese students, especially for the STEM and also for certain disciplines. So that's one of the issues that the education has been affected by the trade war. Yeah, but we do try to develop a lot of the exchange programs to send students over China and then also, to get students here. Actually, I think 30% of the international students' body is actually from China.
What does having more Chinese students in the US, what does that do in terms of the input, the reaction that you get, not just in terms of innovation, but what Chinese students actually bring to the table?
I think it brings diversity. I wouldn't say it's just Chinese students. I would say, we need diversity here. So not just Chinese students, but, students from all over the world. Yeah, and then that will, of course, promote understanding from both sides.
And another way that we see understanding is, of course, on the athletic field. We're seeing a lot more collaborations between the major leagues here, Major League Baseball, basketball, the NFL. They've all shown more interest in China. Tell us a little bit about that development.
So we do love the NBAs nowadays, so it's a big hit. I think the major influence of U.S. sports in China is the NBA, and then especially we have Yao Ming here. So Yao Ming now is treated as the god, in China, right? So everyone loves him. But we would love to see more and more sports like golf, others, basketball, baseball and golf. But now I think the major one is the NBA. Yeah.
And you really do see a lot more understanding coming from the world of sports and through these cultural ties. How do you see these better cultural ties impacting the overall US-China relationship?
I think this is not just promoting mutual understandings. I would say in addition to economics and technology and, maybe politics or maybe other issues, but definitely cultural exchange circulations is one of the big things in the age of globalization. So we want to see more, and we can learn from both sides. We can benefit from both. So not just from the economic aspects, but from many other aspects as well. Yeah.